Last week, on 15 February, the U.S. House of Representatives, which is the lower chamber of U.S. Congress, passed the bipartisan Resolve Tibet Bill, primarily known as Promoting a Resolution to the Tibet-China Dispute Act, H.R. 533. The bill was introduced by Representative Jim McGovern and Michael McCall, which received a resounding majority of 392 votes in favor, demonstrating a strong bipartisan support toward Tibet and the Tibetan cause. To tell us more on the success of Resolve Tibet Bill, I am pleased to have Representative Dr. Namgyal Choedup from the Office of Tibet, North America, joining us from Washington, D.C. Welcome to our program, Kungala.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Kungala, the passing of Resolve Tibet Bill in U.S. House was a good news for all the Tibetans and Tibet supporters around the world. So, can you tell us how pivotal this moment is?
This bill is great news, and it's very auspicious. It's just right after the Tibetan New Year that the U.S. Congress passed this bill with unanimous, I would say almost unanimous bipartisan support, and it sends a strong message to the people of Tibet who are undergoing brutal and paralyzing oppression under Xi Jinping's authoritarian regime, that the United States people stand with the people of Tibet. So I would say it's such a a strong message to the people of Tibet who haven't lost their determination and spirit.
And the bill was passed in the House with a bipartisan majority, showing an overwhelming support. So what are your thoughts on this feat in terms of the numbers, when you talk about 392 support, both from the Republican and Democratic Party?
Yes, Tibet issue has always received bipartisan and institutional support in the United States for a very long time. Thanks largely due to His Holiness leadership and his message. And also, as His Holiness always reminds us, people who support Tibet or the Tibetan cause are not just pro-Tibet or anti-China. They are essentially pro-justice. So this shows the kind of the level of support that the Tibet issue has with the people of United States and the Congress.
Prior to the Resolve Tibet Bill, the bipartisan support from the Congress, the U.S. states has several other laws in empower Tibetan people. Most notable are the Tibet Policy Act of 2002, Reciprocal Access to Tibet in 2018, and the Tibet Policy and Support Act of 2020. So what is different and what is most highlighted in this particular bill?
Yes, you are right. The United States has, it's the only country that has passed law on Tibet. And you're right, Tibet Policy Act, Tibetan Policy of 2002. Then we have the Reciprocal Access to Tibet Act 2019 or 2018, and the Tibet Policy and Support Act 2020. That shows, as I mentioned earlier, the level of support that the Tibet issue has. And this bill is significant in that it is an amendment of Tibetan Policy Act of 2002, taking into the ground realities. And it has always been the longstanding policy of the United States government that it supports direct negotiation between Beijing, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or his representative, or the democratically elected leadership of the Tibetan people, to find negotiated solution to the issue of Tibet-China conflict. Now, we have had 9 rounds of talk between 2002 and 2010, and since then there's been a stalemate, and the situation inside has gone from bad to worse. And whatever nominal autonomy there is, it's being slowly eroded. And now, under Xi Jinping, the policy is basically aimed at eradicating the very much the identity of the Tibetan people. And the United States Congress is deeply concerned. And this legislation came about after the new Kashak came to power, and when the first official visit happened with the visit of Minister of Department of Information and International Relations, Kalun Nzindoma, in February of 2022, and then she laid the groundwork for the current what the city is tactic or strategy to resolve the China-Tibet conflict, and international pressure or diplomatic effort, I would say, is part of that. And when Sekyong made his first official visit to the United States in April of 2022, he met with the United States officials and also the leaders on the Hill. And at that time, the Speaker of the House, who's a long-time supporter of Tibet, a Tibetan friend, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Sekyong had a strategy meeting, and basically the Congress, the leadership wanted to know what can United States Congress do to help the Tibetan people. And that's how this legislation came about. And this legislation basically tries to counter China's disinformation on Tibet and Tibet's legal and historical status, and also its attempt to distort, Tibet's history, Tibet's culture, Tibet's institution, including that of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So in that sense, this bill is very significant. It's very vital in that it strengthens the current United States, policy on Tibet, and in a way codifies its stance on Tibet issue. And even if the Tibet issue is not resolved tomorrow and the next year, it makes sure that the United States take a principled and consistent stand on the issue of Tibet. So in that sense, it's really vital and sends a very strong message to Beijing too, that unless the Tibet issue is resolved through negotiation, through dialogue, the United States will stand with the people of Tibet.
And Kungala, so the bill is next to table in the United States Senate, right? And can you tell us when is it expected to take place, and how optimistic are you? Do you think the support within the Senate for Resolve Tibet bill will match with that of what the support that we saw just now recently from the lower chambers of U.S. Congress?
We are very confident that the bill will pass with strong, bipartisan support in the Senate too. Having said that, the way the legislation proceeds in the Senate is a bit different from the way it works in the United States Congress or the House of Representatives. So some of these steps are similar, but that said, there are many ways that bill can go forward. And also we have to look at the overall, situation. And so right now, we are already in touch with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. That's the committee, committee of jurisdiction that the bill has to go through. And we're already working on that, and we are very positive. And what we have basically asked is that we look forward to the Senate passing the same, legislation that House has passed with strong, bipartisan support. And the House passing this with strong bipartisan support sends a strong message to the members in the Senate that the people of the United States are, in support of this legislation, and we hope the Senate will refer it to its leaders, and it will be a move forward as soon as possible. Tibet issue, as I mentioned earlier, has had long history of bipartisan and institutional support. So the Tibet legislation is not an issue of a strong partisan politics in the United States. So we are very confident that it'll move forward very soon, but we can't say with we can just say when will it be exactly passed, but we're looking forward to it. And the International Campaign for Tibet has organized this year's Lobby Day from March 11th to 12th So we are expecting above what is 100 members from all over the United States to come to DC, and during this 2 days lobby, they the members will reach out to the U.S. Congress member, thank them for which is supporting this legislation, and then they'll reach out to the senators and basically asking them to support this and pass this as soon as possible. So that's how we are looking at it.
And what is the potential of this bill when it becomes a law and after it's at the last stage, right, when it's sent to the president? So how can it be materialized to resolve the long-standing Tibet-China dispute?
So if I understand your question, so after the Senate passed the legislation, then it'll automatically come to the desk of the president. And once the president ratifies it and signs it, it becomes a law. So once it becomes a law, then we expect the United States administration to do whatever it can by the provisions of the legislation to work with like-minded countries, and also to call out China's egregious human rights and abuses, and in that sense send this message to Beijing that it is in Beijing's interest to resolve the Tibet issue by sitting down with the Tibetans and find a negotiated end to this long, standing conflict. And that said, the city is already working with, Congress members or parliament in the free world to do, come up with similar, policy stand as the United States. And in that sense, United States as a global superpower, and also that moral leader, global moral leadership and democracy, freedom and fundamental right, we think that will send the right message to other like-minded countries to come together and take a stand, something similar to what the United States has done, a principled stand, and that is all we can ask from the international community. Now, ultimately, when it comes to Tibet-China conflict, China is our neighbor. We don't have any choice. And as His Holiness has set us the broad roadmap, it's for us to find a way to sit down with the Beijing leadership and discuss and come up with a solution that is mutually beneficial, long-lasting solution to the Tibet-China conflict. Yeah.
Kongla, so these are my questions for this interview, but would you like to add a few more informations if you have?
So this legislation, as I mentioned before, it's all came about thanks largely to the visionary, leadership of His Holiness. And if you remember, when the House Foreign Affairs Committee discussed during that markup hearing on this legislation, 6 members spoke on this legislation. Almost all of them talked about how they have met His Holiness in the past and how they've been so influenced by his message and his wisdom and his vision, and that's why they support the just cause of Tibet. And this legislation so largely came out of His Holiness visionary leadership, and also the collective effort of the Tibetan people, and also the civil societies who support Tibet support groups. So I think it's a result of His Holiness' blessing, and also the collective effort of the Tibetan people and the Tibet support groups. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all those who are involved in this, individuals, organizations who contributed in whatever way they can to reach out to the Congress member and advocate for this legislation. So I would like to thank everyone. Yeah.
So Kongla, thank you so much for taking out your time for this interview and talking to us about the Resolve Tibet Bill. A huge success this time, and I wish you all the best for all the advocacy work that your office is doing in the United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that.
The enactment of this bill will strengthen and reinforce the middle way approach policy and the Central Tibetan Administration's commitment to dialogue to resolve the Tibet-China conflict in the best interests of both the Tibetan and Chinese people. Thank you so much for watching, and see you all in the next episode of In Conversation with Tibet TV.